The ocean didn't feel like water. It felt like a fist cold, heavy, deliberate, slamming me under as Ryan stood on his perfect white yacht, watching me drown like I was an inconvenience. Ivy's voice cut through the wind, sweet and vicious. Say hi to the sharks. My dress dragged me down. My new hip screamed. And the two people I loved most didn't even pretend to reach for me. They thought the Atlantic would swallow me clean. But what they didn't know was, before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever felt a knife in your back from someone who shares your blood. Betrayal hits different when it comes from your own family. If you know that sting, stay with me because what happened next will make your heart stop. I didn't become a target overnight. My story started in a cramped Ohio house that always smelled like burnt toast and cheap cleaning spray, where being the oldest meant carrying everyone else's weight before I even knew what childhood was supposed to feel like. My mother believed girls should be helpful, and my father believed boys deserve more. So neither of them saw the problem with sliding the best food, the best gifts, the best attention toward my brother while telling me I was strong enough to manage. I learned early that silence was expected from me. I also learned silence bruises. One memory still hits like a bruise that never healed. I was 6. Legs dangling from a kitchen chair, watching my mom place the biggest piece of fried chicken on my brother's plate. "He's growing," she said, not even looking at me. I swallowed my hunger. I swallowed the sting. I didn't know it then. But moments like that were shaping me, teaching me exactly how it feels when the people who claim to love you choose someone else. School was the only place where the rules made sense. Math didn't play favorites. Numbers didn't forget you. When I won my first competition at 12, I searched the crowd for my dad. He never came. He was at my brother's baseball game instead. "Sports matter more," he said later. "Your thing is cute, though." Cute. That word sliced deeper than he realized. I didn't know it then. But being invisible at home was training me for a future where I'd again be erased by the people closest to me. By high school, I was working nights at a diner, hands smelling of fryer grease, clothes sticking to my skin, saving for college, while my siblings used the family money jar for fun things: cleats, dresses, trips I never got invited to. When I asked my mom why, she smiled, almost proud. "You're the smart one, Evelyn. You'll be fine." Translation: you don't get to need anything. Thanksgiving was always a showcase of favoritism. My dad once handed my sister a gold bracelet while giving me a pack of socks. "You're practical," he said. I laughed like it didn't matter. But that night, lying awake, I felt something inside me fold quiet. Small, but permanent. I didn't know it back then, but every tiny cut was preparing me for a much bigger blade later. Then came Daniel. Meeting him felt like stepping out of a dim hallway into sunlight. He saw me, not the workhorse daughter, not the background character me. Smart, capable, worthy. Loving him felt easy. Being loved by him felt miraculous. We built a life in Boston, full of cedar-scented evenings, jasmine candles, slow Sunday coffee. For the first time, I didn't feel like someone's afterthought. Ryan was born into that comfort, that safety, that privilege. And privilege can rot quietly. Daniel tried to ground him: chores, curfews, rules, but Ivy would later undo all of that in ways I didn't see coming. Still, when Ryan was little, he was sweet. He'd curl up beside me with picture books, bring me dandelions from the yard, tell me I was the best mom ever. I clung to that version of him long after he outgrew it. I didn't know it then, but the gap between who he was and who he'd become was already forming. The split widened when Daniel died. Sudden, brutal, the kind of loss that leaves a crack in every wall of your life. At the funeral, while I could barely breathe, Ryan was already asking about estate paperwork. and Ivy perfect lashes. Perfect smile stood beside him, like a shadow that had finally found something worth clinging to. Even then, I didn't understand the danger. Not yet. But the warning signs were there, flickering like faulty lights. The first holiday after Daniel died should have brought us closer. Instead, it revealed the first real fracture. The house felt too big, too quiet. I lit the candles Daniel loved, hoping the scent of cedar and orange peel would make the place feel alive again. It didn't. Ryan and Ivy arrived 2 hours late, breezing in like guests, not family. Ivy handed me a clearance candle. Ryan slipped a diamond bracelet onto her wrist, smiling like he'd done something noble. "She deserves something special," he said. It was a small moment, but it hit like a slap. Not because of the gift, because of his eyes. There was distance in them, calculation, something unfamiliar. I didn't know it then, but Ivy had already begun her slow rewrite of him, step by step, smile by smile. When I had hip surgery 6 weeks before the yacht incident, I expected care, concern, presence. Instead, Ryan scrolled through his phone while I drifted in and out of anesthesia. Ivy kept adjusting my pillows, not gently, just efficiently, like she was prepping a room, not visiting a human being. "Mom," Ryan said softly, "while you recover, we should handle your finances. Just temporary." I was groggy, grieving, tired. You can't imagine how vulnerable a hospital bed makes you. So I signed. I didn't know it then, but that signature was the starting pistol for everything that followed. When I moved to a condo for simplicity, Ryan insisted on renovating the old house. What he really meant was remove Daniel from it. They tore out the study, the bookshelves, the warm lights, the life. One afternoon, I found Ivy filming a home tour video in the gutted space, smiling like a real estate influencer. "This will be Noah's room someday," she said. Noah didn't exist, or so I thought. Months later, I dropped by with a casserole, an embarrassing attempt at bonding. Kara, the nanny, answered. She looked like a deer in headlights. "They're out," she whispered. Then a baby cried upstairs. A baby Ivy had never carried. A baby she'd never mentioned. A baby whose existence Ryan brushed off as a surprise we weren't ready to share. I didn't know it then, but Kara's fear was the first crack in their story. The second came in the form of subtle sabotage. My keys disappearing, my bank card shifting drawers, my phone alarms resetting. Every time I questioned it, Ivy gave me that soft, poisonous smile. "Evelyn, forgetfulness is normal at your age." The line was always delivered like concern, but it tasted like control. Ryan started parroting Ivy's narrative. "Mom, you repeated yourself 3 times yesterday. Mom, you missed your appointment. Mom, you sound tired." No shouting, no accusations, just a slow, steady drip meant to drown me in doubt. I didn't know it then, but they were building a version of me confused, unstable, unfit. And once that version existed on paper, in emails, in doctor notes they arranged behind my back, my voice wouldn't matter in court or anywhere else. The final warning sign came disguised as sweetness. Ivy sent me a voice memo before the yacht trip. "Wear something nice today," she said. "We want you looking beautiful." Beautiful. For who? For what? It wasn't a celebration. It was preparation, and I walked right into it. Not because I didn't see the signs, but because I was still the same girl who learned to swallow pain at a kitchen table in Ohio. Still, the mother who believed her son could never truly hurt her. Still the widow hoping her family wasn't slipping away for good. I didn't know it then, but the version of me they were trying to erase was about to surface. Trouble didn't kick the door in. It seeped in quiet. controlled, intentional. The first escalation came when my financial advisor, Dan, stopped returning my calls. He'd been with Daniel for 20 years. A man who always picked up on the first ring. Suddenly, his assistant kept saying he was busy, traveling, or handling paperwork Ryan already approved. Approved by who? When I pressed harder, the assistant slipped, per your son's instructions. We'll only discuss your accounts with him present. My accounts. My money. But now I apparently needed permission to access it. I called Ryan. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. Then Ivy called back. Her voice was sugar-dipped in frost. Evelyn, don't stress yourself. Dan works better with Ryan. You should rest. Focus on healing. Healing from what I'd had hip surgery. Not a lobotomy. I didn't know it then. But that distance they were creating wasn't accidental. It was structural. The second escalation hit during a dinner at their apartment. The place felt like a showroom cold marble. Sharp corners. No warmth. Ivy poured wine into my glass before I could decline. When I set it down, she filled it again. Ryan watched her do it. So, he said, cutting his steak, have you thought about long-term care? Just logistics? Long-term care, I echoed. You've seemed overwhelmed. Ivy said lightly, swirling her glass. You repeated yourself last week. That's because you rescheduled my appointment without telling me. She gave a soft laugh. Confusion happens. That word again. Confusion. Their favorite seed, they planted it everywhere. My head felt foggy that night. My limbs heavy. When I got home, I counted my pills. The bottle was lighter than it should have been. I didn't know it then. But Ivy had been helping me with my meds for weeks. The third escalation was more violent in its subtlety. I walked into the old house during renovation and found Daniel's study transformed into a stark white media room. His bookshelves were gone. His vinyl collection gone. His chair gone. A stranger's room in my own home. Ivy stood in the middle of it, filming a home tour clip. This space had so much clutter, she said. We finally cleared it out. Clutter. Daniel's life. Our marriage. This wasn't clutter, I said. She didn't even look at me. Evelyn, houses evolve. You should too. That line wasn't about decor. It was about erasing me one room at a time. The fourth escalation happened when I heard a baby cry upstairs. A baby that didn't exist. A baby Ivy had never carried. Kara tried to block me from going up. They don't like visitors, she whispered. Visitors, I was the homeowner. Upstairs. I saw at the crib. The formula. The toys. A nursery. A life fabricated out of thin air. Who is he? I asked. Kara's face crumpled. I can't say. The panic in her voice told me everything. This baby wasn't just a secret. He was leverage. But the fifth escalation is the one that shifted something deep in me, something that would eventually turn into anger. Then resolve. I went to the bank to update my mailing address. Simple errand. But the manager greeted me with overly gentle concern. Mrs. Blake, we've already spoken with your son and your attorney about transitioning control of your portfolio. Given your situation. My situation, I repeated. He slid a pamphlet across the desk. Memory decline. How banks protect you. My skin went cold. I never approved any transition, I said. He frowned. Your neurologist did. I don't have a neurologist. Silence. Thick. Embarrassed. Pitying. That's when I understood this wasn't accidental. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was a coordinated effort to make me legally irrelevant. And the pieces clicked: the missing bank statements, the rescheduled appointments, the foggy mornings, the way Ivy always insisted on pouring my drinks. I walked out of the bank that day with the world tilting under my feet. Not because I felt old, or weak, or confused, But because I finally recognized the truth, my son wasn't drifting away. He was pushing me off the edge. And Ivy was the one placing his hands exactly where she wanted them. The sixth escalation hit me the morning Ryan invited me on the yacht. His voice was soft, rehearsed, too steady for a son reaching out. Just the three of us. He said. A reset. A celebration. Celebration of what my fading relevance. Still, I said yes. That's the thing about mothers. Hope tricks us long after common sense gives up. The yacht was beautiful in that hollow, expensive way Ivy loved. She greeted me with a smile that never touched her eyes. Careful on the steps, she murmured, pressing a hand near my still healing hip. Not a supportive touch, more like checking the weak spot on a wall before knocking it down. Inside, Ryan poured champagne like we were toasting a victory I didn't know I'd lost. Ivy filmed us with her phone, capturing every blink, every pause, every stumble the rocking boat forced out of me. Evelyn, did you forget your meds again? You sure you're okay? You look off. Each comment a stitch tightening around me. A script they'd written together. I didn't know it then. But they weren't celebrating. They were collecting evidence for a narrative where I no longer recognized my own name. The seventh escalation arrived later that night in the form of a voicemail that wasn't meant for me. A nurse from the fertility clinic Ivy claimed to be using whispered through the speaker we received the final payment for Emily Ross. Release documents as instructed. I froze. Emily Ross. A name I knew. A girl I'd once guided through scholarship applications. A girl whose entire life felt fragile, breakable. A girl who didn't have parents strong enough to protect her. I replayed the message over and over until the words felt like needles. I didn't know it then. But Emily wasn't just part of the story, she was the hinge everything swung on. The eighth escalation crawled into my life quietly. Keys missing. Bank card in the freezer. Passwords changed. Lights left on. Small things too small to prove. Too small to fight, designed to make me question myself. When I mentioned it to Ryan, he sighed dramatically. Mom, this is why we worry. This is why we're taking precautions. Precautions? That word sounded like a verdict. And Ivy added, smiling sweetly, we've been documenting everything. The doctor needs a clear picture. Documenting everything. My mind. My mistakes. My existence. The ninth escalation came the night Ivy drove me home. She insisted on escorting me to the door. I unlocked it. And she leaned close enough for her perfume to sting my throat. You shouldn't live alone, she whispered. It'd be so easy for someone to slip in. My hand tightened on the doorframe. Is that a threat? She smiled like we were sharing a joke. Just concern. But the chill she left behind wasn't concern. It was the quiet promise of danger. I slept with the lights on, listening for footsteps that never came. The 10th escalation was the one that nearly broke me. I went to retrieve documents from my safety deposit box. The clerk glanced at the computer, hesitated, then said, your son already updated these access permissions. Updated what? I asked. She lowered her voice. Your medical status flagged unusual cognitive decline. He provided doctor's certification. My vision blurred. Doctor's certification. For what? Who signed it? I didn't know it then. But that document was meant to erase my credibility, to paint me as a confused old woman long before I ever drowned. The 11th escalation came when Ryan called the night before the yacht trip. His voice wasn't confident. It quivered. Mom, tomorrow just be open. Okay, it'll be easier that way. Easier for who? I almost asked. But something in his tone stopped me. Fear, guilt. A last-minute plea I wasn't meant to understand. I hung up with a knot in my chest I couldn't name. And then came the final escalation, subtle, almost sweet. Ivy sent a voice memo. Where's something nice tomorrow? Evelyn, we want you looking beautiful on camera. Camera. Beautiful. For the celebration. for the final footage of me alive. I should have known then. I should have run. I should have listened to every instinct clawing at my ribcage. But hope is a dangerous thing and love is worse. So I showed up, dressed beautifully, exactly the way they wanted me to look before they erased me. I didn't sneak. I didn't hide. I walked straight up the steps of my old house, the same steps Daniel salted every winter, and rang the doorbell like I still owned the place. Because I did. Kara opened the door, eyes wide, breath catching like she'd just seen a crime scene come back to life. "Mrs. Blake, you're alive," I said, "and we're out of time." Upstairs, Noah's cry tore through the silence thin. Urgent. Real. I followed the sound into what used to be my sewing room. Now it was a curated nursery, pastel walls, stage toys, a crib that probably cost more than my first car. I lifted him gently. He settled instantly, tiny fingers grabbing my sweater like he knew I was his last anchor. Kara hovered in the doorway. "They'll be here any minute," she whispered. "Good," I said. "Get in the closet. Lock it. Record everything. Not a sound until I say." Her hands shook, but she obeyed. She knew fear. She'd been living with it longer than I realized. The front door slammed. Footsteps. Fast. Angry. Ryan's voice first frantic. Ivy's right behind him, razor sharp. They reached the nursery and froze. Ryan went pale instantly, like his soul tried to leave his body and didn't succeed. Ivy. Ivy wasn't shocked. She was calculating. "Hi, kids," I said softly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Ryan staggered backward. "Mom, how are you alive?" I saw turns out being married to a man who swam laps every morning teaches you something," I said. "And turns out a fishing boat was closer than you thought." Ivy regained her voice first. "This is insane. You can't be here." Why I tilted my head. "Does my being alive ruin your paperwork?" Ryan's face crumpled. "Mom, please. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I cut in. "The pills. The doctor notes you arranged. The financial trap. The yacht. The shove." Something flickered in his eyes, remorse. "Brief. Weak. Too late to matter." Ivy stepped forward. "You weren't supposed to suffer. We gave you an easy exit. You should have drowned," I said. "Right." And then, 3 soft chimes from downstairs. The doorbell. Ryan's voice cracked. "She's here." Olivia Grant didn't walk up the stairs. She ascended like a woman inspecting her property. 2 large men flanked her, hands inside their jackets. She looked at me like I was a scheduling inconvenience. "Mrs. Blake," she said, perfectly composed. "Your survival complicates things. Occupational hazard." I replied. She scanned the room, Noah in my arms, Ryan trembling, Ivy seething. Then she sighed. "End it," she told her men. "All of them. Gas explosion. Electrical fire. Doesn't matter. Clean." One guard reached for the closet door, the one where Kara hid. "Now," I whispered. The nursery window shattered, inward glass exploding like ice. Black-clad FBI agents flooded the room. "FBI, don't move." Chaos. Shouts. Guns dropped. Ryan screaming. Ivy swearing. Noah crying against my chest. Olivia spun toward the hallway, only to freeze. Jack Mercer stood there, badge up, eyes cold. "Olivia Grant," he said, "you're done." Her face didn't break. It hardened. She turned her gaze on me, pure venom. "You should have drowned." I tightened my hold on Noah. Steady. Unshaken. "I don't drown," I said. "I surface." And in that moment, as the agents cuffed her and dragged her out, I realized something. They hadn't just tried to kill me. They'd awakened the part of me that refuses to die. When Olivia was dragged out of the nursery, the house didn't feel safer. It felt exposed, as if tearing her out of the walls revealed a deeper rot none of us had seen yet. Agents swarmed downstairs, radios buzzing, footsteps echoing through the hallways that once held Daniel's laughter. Now they held crime scene flashlights. Ryan and Ivy sat on the nursery floor, wrists zip-tied, faces crumpled into versions of themselves I barely recognized. Not schemers, not masterminds, just two people who gambled with blood and finally realized the house always wins. For a second, one short, dangerous second, I almost felt sorry for them. Then Noah curled into me, soft and warm and innocent. The pity evaporated. Jack approached quietly. "We'll take them in tonight. The charges will stick. Olivia's network falls with her." I nodded, but something inside me stayed cold. "Evelyn," he continued, lowering his voice, "once you testify, this ends." "No," I said. "It doesn't." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I looked around the nursery, at the crib Ivy staged for aesthetics, at the camera in the corner she thought I didn't notice, at the documents I'd already memorized in their drawers. "They didn't build this plan alone," I said. "And Olivia didn't run the clinic by herself. People funded her, protected her, covered deaths like Emily's." "Do you really think they'll let this unravel without fighting back?" Jack exhaled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," I murmured, tightening my hold on Noah, "that this wasn't an isolated attack on an old woman with money. This was a system, and systems don't collapse quietly." Downstairs, Ryan began sobbing loud. Raw, desperate. Ivy stayed silent, but her silence was the truest confession in the room. One of the agents asked me to gather any documents I hadn't turned over yet. Documents if only they knew. They didn't know about the secure drive I'd already backed up, the off-site storage locker, the emails forwarded from Ivy's cloud, the video clips from their nanny cam, the receipts taped inside my coat pocket, the navy blue dress sealed in a waterproof bag inside my bank box. They didn't know the truth I'd uncovered before walking into this house. This wasn't just an attempted murder. This was an enterprise. And enterprises have leaders we haven't met yet. As they escorted Ryan and Ivy past me, Ryan whispered, "Mom, please, help us." I looked at him, really looked, then said the only thing left to say. "I will. Just not in the way you're hoping." Because they thought I crawled out of the ocean to save myself. What they didn't realize was this: I surfaced with a mission. If you've ever been the outsider in your own family, the one they underestimated, the one they quietly tried to push aside, then you understand why I'm telling this. No one should have to fight alone, especially not against the people who share their blood. So, if any part of this hits something in you, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from, because my story isn't finished, and neither is the fight.